Well, they say blood is thicker than water. And in its literal sense, that is, of course, true. But this phrase is often always used to underscore the critical bonds that we share with family and those who are close to us. Indeed, many of us enjoy very strong, loving relationships with our siblings, our parents, uncles, and all the other relatives around us. But what happens when your own blood relatives turn your world upside down, especially when you live away from the village? Today, I want to talk with you through some of the nightmare experiences that many diasporans experience at the hands of their loved ones. And when I'm talking about diasporans, I'm including other Kenyans who live in cities but have to do things in the village. But before we unpack all of that, folks, welcome to Karateng, friends. I hope this is not a new picture for those of you who are returning subscribers. If you're new, Karateng is an incredible village in Kisumu in Western Kenya. This is our home where we spend a few months out of the year, but we go back and forth between Karateng and Long Beach, California. It is a Sunday afternoon, and I have no plans of leaving today. I'm always gone almost every day. And so a day like today, I plan to spend the day just chilling with the kids and soaking up all that the village offers. I absolutely love the village, as you already know. I was born and raised in the village, and this is my comfort zone. So today I'll just be chilling with the kids, just doing what needs to be done, and just spending as much time as I can around people who care about me the most. So join us in the village, and let's have a conversation about this topic that seems to come up very frequently, both in private conversations that I have with folks, and even in the comment section. So I would say that nearly every day I get a call or a text from somebody in diaspora seeking help with some construction project, often after a harrowing experience with their family members. And we do everything all the way from planning to architectural works to building to renovations and all that. So right now we have a bunch of projects spread all over Kenya. And it turns out that almost everyone I talk to, there's probably only one exception, begins with, hey, I started doing X, Y, Z, and here's what my brother did to me, or here's what my sister did to me. And so I'm reaching out to you to see if we can find something different that gets me to what I want. It is truly unfortunate that many folks have these harrowing stories. In fact, those whose cases are better are more the exception. So, like I say, the majority of times I hear almost very identical stories. Surprisingly enough, these stories are very so similar, regardless of where a person lives. Because I talk to people in Europe. In fact, the majority of them are in Germany or in Scandinavian countries like Switzerland, Norway, and all that. Apparently, I've got quite a few people who watch me from that part of the world. And then a good number of people who I've been talking to live in North America. Whether you're talking about Mexico, the US, Canada. And some other folks actually spread all over Africa from Somalia to Botswana who still reach out for me with these stories and seeking to get some kind of help. And more lately, I've been getting quite a bit of traffic from people in Australia as well. So while I'm glad to connect with people around the world, I just find it interesting that diaspora stories are so similar, regardless of where folks are. And the script is almost like copy-paste. However, I'd say that there are a few cases that I would really consider outliers, sort of, like that are truly heart-wrenching. Some of them I may not be able to share on this platform because a lot of these stories are shared with me in confidence. And so unless I have permission to share, I may not be able to give you all the details of the things that people tell me regarding siblings and construction back at home. And I really would say that, especially this week, I've had some two discussions with folks from different parts of the world that have really caused me to think that I'm beginning to wonder whether there are any limits to human cruelty. people are doing things that I personally I would have never imagined possible. And maybe in part because I've been so comfortable, given that my siblings and my folks have been just incredible. My sisters, my brother, my mom have just been beyond amazing when it comes to me depending on them to get stuff done when I'm not at home. Oftentimes, as I've said, my siblings will actually use their own money to get things done. And in my family, it feels like everybody's just excited for everyone to win. So I know my experience is different and possibly unique because this is not the norm from the people I talk to. And I would say confidently that my experience rather is an exception because I've only met maybe 2 or 3 other folks who can really depend on family to get things done. The majority of folks I talk to don't or cannot. So I would say that the bigger group that is unlike like us, I hear again almost consistently of them talking about how siblings have really failed them big time, to the point where some people have just decided, hey, as of now, Kenya is really not for me. And that makes me really sad. Yet we all know once you live in diaspora for a long time, the desire to come back is always stronger and stronger. The longer you live in diaspora, the more you want to come back. So I'm going to share with you some of the stories, some of the issues that where siblings really cause harm. And my hope is that out of these stories, I hope that you realize you're not alone. And then number 2, I hope that if you're just moving to diaspora, you can keep abreast with some of these challenges so that you're not walking in blindly. And hopefully at the end, I'll also share some nuggets that may help if you're caught up in any of these issues. So the most commonly cited issues when I talk to diasporans is things to do with siblings buying property and putting in their own names. So you live in Austria or you live somewhere in Europe, you send money for them to buy land and you give instruction that the land should be on your name. And then it turns out that the land is actually registered on your brother's name. I've seen lots of those cases, particularly land and cars. That happens quite a bit. And because we trust our siblings, we barely check until something comes up and then you realize not only don't you own the property, but the property has already been sold in some cases. Yeah, because once they have the legal paperwork, there's nothing to stop them from selling it. I have numerous cases where siblings simply sell lands or cars that belong to their diaspora counterparts. Again, in a few cases, they actually just change the names. That the land might be bought in your name, but over time they simply bribe the system because in Kenya there's no problem that money cannot solve. They simply bribe folks in the system, go to the lands office or people who deal with cars, and they change their names and sell your property. This is really, really common. I'm not sure why, but I'd be curious to hear about your experience. The second most common issue, of course, and this ranks as a close second, is what I would call construction fraud, where you have many, many different examples, including non-existent property. You send the money, you think things are being built, well, nothing is going on. Or the more obvious one is excessive costs, where something might cost 50,000 shillings, but you end up paying 500,000. So these astronomical changes in cost is fairly common. And for some reason, some people just think this is okay. Maybe in part because they don't realize how much we sweat to make the little money we make out in diaspora. But then there's also other cases where you send money, but the product that you eventually get is so different than what you asked for that it almost feels like you need to demolish and start again. So recently I was talking to another young woman who, of course, was working with a relative. They built, and then it turns out that the relative is also building his own place. And then when you compare their place and your place, it's like night and day. Their place actually looks better, and they're not, in the meantime, they're not even working. So it's your money building those two properties, and theirs actually looks better than yours. It hurts, folks. It really hurts. And then the other cases that I keep hearing about is about our peers at home really terrorizing our dependents that we leave behind. Because many people in diaspora, when we leave home, some of us don't have the ability to travel with our dependents. And so when we travel without the dependents, we often leave these other folks in the care of our relatives. This is more common with single parents or people who have kids who are waiting to take exams. Like for example, if you come to diaspora and leaving your kid who is about to take KCSE, and then there are cases where you have unresolved custody issues, and so because of that, you're not able to travel with your dependents. And I'm also including parents in this group of dependents. So when we rely on our siblings to take care of these dependents, I've heard of all kinds of cases. In one case right now, a friend of mine just discovered that her daughter, who is 11, has been turned into a maid in her sister's house. It's really painful. And so there are cases where dependents are expected to help with finances, housing, and all that, but they don't do that. And in some cases, they actually treat their kids better than your kids. So the other less common issue, but that also keeps coming up, is elder abuse. Again, in the hands of siblings. I hear cases where somebody tells me that in their family, there are about 6 siblings, and he's the only one abroad. The other 5 siblings at home could not care less about the parent who lives at home. And so it turns out that the sibling who lives nearby, has a car, would not even volunteer their car to take the parent to the hospital. So the person in diaspora has to figure out everything, yet they're the ones who are furthest away from home. And it really pains to see all of that, where it turns out that the people who are closest don't seem to care about the parents in the village. Now, this one is also common, but not as common as the previous cases where spouses come in, where the sibling left at home ends up taking over the spouse that was left behind. Those things happen. Another common case is about rental property, where siblings actually even divert the funds from the rental property into their personal accounts, or they report that they are not tenants in the rental property, when in fact they are collecting rent. In other cases, you'll see them just trying to take over the entire property and refuse to turn them over. So if you ask me why, I would not know, but maybe this is mostly greed. So in terms of suggestions, here are some of the things I'd recommend that you do in case you find yourself in this spot. Number one, if you're sending money for something, at least try to cover their expenses. Don't just send the exact same amount. For example, if they're going to spend money for transport, be sure to cover that. If you're sending money through M-Pesa, please think about transaction fees. So if they're asking for 4,000, don't just send 4,000 on the dot. And don't always give blind trust, because that is a breeding ground for problems. And then once in a while, if you own land, just do a random search. Don't just sit there because you have your title deed and you think it's all good. Whatever you have may not be functional. So once in a while, do a search to just make sure your properties are exactly the way they're supposed to be. And then avoid, nowadays everybody has a phone. To the extent possible, avoid sending money through other people. Just send money directly, even to your grandmother. My grandmother cannot even read a text. But if I need to send the money, I'll just send the money directly. So you don't have to send money through other people. And remember, the lawyers at home are often very crooked. And so don't think the lawyer you're holding cannot make plans with the other lawyer, because when they're on the ground, they will make deals and they will mess you up. So always keep your guards on. And then to the extent possible, with rental properties, you cannot run a rental property without CCTV. Because how will you know that a house is empty or it's occupied? I've got a friend who thought that his house was empty for 1 year, yet his brother was actually collecting rent for the entire time. Now, if at all possible, this is where you can hire professionals who are not related to you. And this is where people like us come in. We are more than happy to help because then we can engage as professionals, not as people related. Well, I hope this was helpful. And as always, I'll see you in the next. Thank you.